Emma stepped out of her rental car, the soft crunch of gravel beneath her boots echoing in the crisp Alabama air. Before her stood the unclaimed baggage center, its modest exterior belying the treasure trove inside. A banner reading, "Home of Lost Treasures," flapped lazily in the breeze, adding a touch of whimsy to the scene. Armed with her notebook and a vintage camera slung over her shoulder, Emma was here to uncover the story behind this unusual store. A store that sells lost luggage, she murmured to herself, adjusting her scarf. How does that even work? The moment she stepped through the doors, a wave of curiosity washed over her. Shelves upon shelves of objects filled the expansive space, each carrying a story untold. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and something faintly exotic, as if the items themselves carried traces of the places they had been. Her eyes widened as she passed a mannequin dressed in an elegant satin wedding gown. A tag read, "Found Gate 12, Chicago O'Hare, never claimed." She couldn't help but wonder about the bride who never walked down the aisle. Did she change her mind? Miss her flight? The possibilities were endless. As she wandered further, her attention was drawn to a section marked Luxury Finds. Among designer watches and silk scarves sat a peculiar locked briefcase. Its black leather exterior was worn but sturdy, the brass combination lock glinting under the store's soft lights. A small note taped to it simply read, "Owner unknown." "Oh, what's inside?" she whispered, half to herself. The staff member nearby chuckled. "That's the million-dollar question," he said. "We've never been able to open it. Customers love to make guesses, though. Some think it's full of money. Others say it's something romantic, like love letters." Emma jotted down a quick note, her mind already swirling with possibilities. This wasn't just a store. It was a museum of forgotten lives and untold stories. A pair of well-worn hiking boots, a stuffed penguin toy with a missing eye, a gold locket engraved with the initials EM. Each item seemed to whisper a secret. By the time she reached the cafe in the corner of the store, Emma was thoroughly enchanted. She ordered a cappuccino and sat by the window, watching families and treasure hunters roam the aisles. The place buzzed with a quiet excitement, as if everyone hoped to stumble upon a piece of magic among the ordinary. Her phone buzzed with a reminder, "Deadline, draft due in 5 days." But for now, Emma pushed it aside. She was here not just to write an article, but to uncover the soul of this extraordinary place. Somewhere in the endless rows of forgotten belongings lay stories waiting to be told, and Emma was determined to find them. Emma's eyes scanned the aisles with growing curiosity. Everywhere she looked, there was something that hinted at a story untold. A teddy bear missing a button eye, a gleaming saxophone with faded initials etched into its side, a passport cover worn at the edges. Each item felt like a clue to a mystery waiting to be solved. She wandered to the corner labeled Miscellaneous Treasures, where less obvious valuables were displayed. As she sifted through a box of old books and documents, her fingers brushed against something unusual, a leather-bound journal. Its cover was soft and weathered, with an embossed globe at the center. A gold clasp kept it shut, but the leather strap holding it in place had grown brittle with age and snapped open easily. Intrigued, Emma flipped through the pages. The journal was filled with handwriting, sketches, and pressed flowers. The entries were written in a mix of languages, English, French, Spanish, and even bits of Arabic. Some pages were adorned with detailed maps, while others had vivid sketches of bustling markets, serene mountain landscapes, and handwritten notes describing food, music, and people. One sketch stood out, a market stall covered in colorful fabrics, with a caption scrawled below in English, "Marrakesh, October 2015, a city of dreams." Another page described a boat ride in Venice, the ink smudged as if the writer had dipped their quill into the waters themselves. "What's this doing here?" Emma whispered aloud. A staff member passing by stopped, curious. "That's an interesting find," he said, peering over her shoulder. "Looks like someone had quite the adventure." Emma's journalist instincts kicked in. She turned to the last few entries, hoping for clues about the owner. One caught her eye. "To the one who finds this, my journey isn't over. I hope you can continue it for me." The handwriting here was shaky, as though written in haste or under stress. "What do you mean, continue it?" Emma murmured, running her finger along the words. She felt a strange sense of responsibility. Who was this traveler? Why didn't they come back for their belongings? Had something happened to them? As she skimmed through the journal again, she noticed recurring symbols, a small star drawn next to certain entries, and a list of coordinates on the back cover. Emma quickly jotted down the numbers in her notebook. This isn't just a journal, she realized. It's a map, a clue. Her heart raced. It wasn't just a matter of writing an article anymore. This journal wasn't lost. It was left behind deliberately. The idea electrified her. Somewhere out there, the truth about this mysterious traveler waited to be uncovered, and Emma knew she couldn't resist the challenge. With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, she whispered to herself, "Let's see where your journey takes me." Emma sat cross-legged on the hotel bed, the journal spread open before her, pages fluttering in the gentle breeze from the ceiling fan. Her notepad was already filled with translations, sketches, and questions. The coordinates she had copied earlier pointed to places spanning the globe. Her first step was clear: follow the journal's trail to uncover the story behind its mysterious owner. The first stop was New Orleans. One of the journal entries detailed a jazz bar on Frenchman Street. The saxophonist played like he was telling secrets. He called himself Benny. With some effort, Emma located a small, dimly lit bar called the Midnight Note. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of saxophones and the murmur of conversations. Emma approached the bartender, showing him the sketch from the journal. "I'm looking for Benny," she said. The bartender smiled knowingly. "You mean old Benny? He's not here every night, but when he plays, it's magic." A few inquiries later, Emma tracked down Benny, a wiry man with a soft grin and a saxophone that gleamed like gold. When Emma showed him the journal, his eyes lit up with recognition. "This belonged to Nico," he exclaimed. "Nico?" Emma repeated, leaning closer. "Yeah, Nico was different. He didn't just pass through places. He became part of them. He listened to people, really listened. Once, he stayed here for 2 weeks, playing with us. He said music was the language everyone understood." Benny paused, a smile tugging at his lips. "When Nico left, he gave me a harmonica, said it was his way of thanking me." Emma's heart swelled at the story. Benny's harmonica was proof of Nico's ability to forge connections. Before she left, Benny played a tune for her, soft, soulful, and full of longing. Her next stop took her to a bustling market in Marrakesh, Morocco. The journal described a vivid scene. Stall 27, rugs of the world, the owner weaves stories into every thread. Navigating the labyrinthine market, Emma found stall 27 and its elderly owner, Amina. The walls of her shop were draped with vibrant rugs, each more intricate than the last. Emma showed Amina the journal's sketch of the stall, and Amina clapped her hands in delight. "Ah, Nico, the storyteller." Amina recounted how Nico spent days in her stall, listening to her stories and learning about the history behind each rug. "He was searching for a gift," Amina explained, leading Emma to a corner of the shop. There, she pointed to a small but beautifully woven rug. "He chose this one for a woman he met in Istanbul. He said it reminded him of her spirit." Emma's curiosity deepened. Who was this woman in Istanbul? She thanked Amina and took a photo of the rug for her notes. In Istanbul, Emma's journey led her to a cafe overlooking the Bosphorus. The journal described a conversation with a poet named Layla. Her words carried the weight of the stars. We spoke until dawn. Finding Layla wasn't easy, but persistence paid off. Layla, now in her 60s, welcomed Emma into her book-filled apartment. "Nico," she said with a wistful smile. "Ah, the traveler with the curious heart." Layla described how Nico had listened to her poetry, encouraging her to compile her work into a collection. He said, "My words deserve to travel the world, just like he did." Layla handed Emma a thin book titled Echoes Across the Bosphorus. This exists because of him. Each encounter painted a fuller picture of Nico, a traveler who didn't just observe the world, but connected with it on a deeply human level. Through music, stories, and encouragement, he left pieces of himself with the people he met, enriching their lives. As Emma boarded her flight back to New York, she held the journal close. She wasn't just following a trail, she was piecing together a legacy. Emma's heart pounded as she walked back into the unclaimed baggage center. Her notebook was bursting with stories from her journey. Benny, Amina, and Layla had painted vivid pictures of Nico, a traveler who connected with people not through grand gestures, but through genuine kindness. Now, she was back where it all began, standing in front of the locked briefcase that had piqued her curiosity. The store's archivist, a meticulous woman named Clara, greeted her warmly. "You've been busy," Clara said, gesturing to the journal Emma clutched. "I've heard about your adventure." Emma grinned, setting the journal on the counter beside the briefcase. "I think it's time we find out what's inside." Clara nodded and retrieved a set of tools designed for safely opening old locks. As she worked, Emma felt a wave of anticipation wash over her. This wasn't just about the contents. It was about closing a chapter of Nico's story. With a soft click, the lock gave way, and Clara gently lifted the lid. Inside, the briefcase was neatly packed with personal items that seemed to encapsulate Nico's life and purpose. First, there was a bundle of postcards from around the world, each addressed to people Nico had met. None of them had been sent, but each carried heartfelt messages. Emma picked one up and read, "To Benny, keep playing music that speaks to the soul. The world needs your song." Next, there was a small velvet pouch containing trinkets, a carved wooden elephant, a pressed flower, a tiny vial of sand. Each piece was labeled with a location: India, Morocco, Greece. These weren't souvenirs in the traditional sense. They were mementos of moments Nico had cherished. At the bottom of the briefcase, carefully wrapped in a faded scarf, was a small, leather-bound notebook. Emma opened it to find pages filled with sketches, poetry, and reflections. One entry stood out. "The world isn't as divided as it seems. We all want to be seen, heard, and loved. If I can remind people of that, my journey is worth it." Finally, there was a letter, its envelope sealed with a wax stamp. On the front, in delicate handwriting, were the words, "To the finder." Emma hesitated before opening it, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a single page written in the same elegant script. "If you are reading this, you found not just my belongings, but a piece of my heart. These items are yours now, to share or keep. Let them remind you that the world is vast, but not lonely, and every act of kindness creates ripples. Thank you for continuing my journey. Nico." Emma blinked back tears as she folded the letter. Nico's life wasn't about possessions, it was about connections. He had left pieces of himself in every corner of the world, not for fame or recognition, but to remind people of their shared humanity. Clara watched Emma carefully pack the briefcase. "What will you do with it?" she asked. Emma smiled. "I'll write about it, but more than that, I think I'll live it." As she left the store, briefcase in hand, Emma felt lighter. Nico's story wasn't over. It was simply beginning a new chapter through her. Emma's fingers danced across the keyboard as she wrote her article in her small New York apartment. The headline blazed across her screen: "The Traveler Who Left Pieces of Kindness Around the World." Her desk was cluttered with the journal, photographs of the items from Nico's briefcase, and a map marked with his journey. She poured her heart into the story, weaving together the vibrant tapestry of Nico's life. She described his ability to connect with strangers, his small but meaningful gestures, and the profound lesson he left behind. The world becomes smaller, kinder, and more beautiful when people embrace shared humanity. She wrote about Benny's soulful music, Amina's rugs of history, Layla's poetry of resilience, and the joy these connections had brought to their lives. When she finished the article, Emma hesitated before hitting publish. Would people understand Nico's mission? Would they feel the same spark she had felt while uncovering his story? With a deep breath, she clicked the button. The response was overwhelming. Within days, the article had gone viral. Comments flooded in from readers across the globe, each sharing their own stories of connection and kindness. Some wrote about strangers who had changed their lives, while others promised to carry forward Nico's mission by spreading small acts of kindness in their own communities. The Unclaimed Baggage Center became an unexpected focal point of the story's impact. Travelers and locals alike began flocking to the store, not just to shop, but to share stories of their own lost and found treasures. Clara, the archivist, started hosting weekly storytelling nights, where people could talk about items they'd found or lost, and the memories tied to them. The once quaint shop buzzed with life, laughter, and even tears as it transformed into a hub of human connection. Emma, meanwhile, found herself in demand for interviews and speaking engagements. She was invited to talk about Nico's story on podcasts, morning shows, and even at a TEDx event. Though she was grateful for the recognition, she always redirected the spotlight to Nico and the simple yet profound message he had left behind. Months later, Emma returned to Scottsboro, the briefcase still with her. At one of the storytelling nights, she opened it for the audience, showing them the trinkets, postcards, and the heartfelt letter from Nico. "This," she said, holding up the journal, "isn't just a record of one man's travels. It's a reminder that every act of kindness creates ripples we may never see." Back in her apartment, Emma kept the briefcase on a shelf by her desk. It served as both a keepsake and a reminder to live with purpose and connection. Inspired by Nico's legacy, she began her next article with the words, "What if every person you met was a story waiting to be discovered?" Nico's journey had ended, but his mission lived on, carried by Emma and the countless others who had been touched by his story. His life was proof that even the smallest gestures of kindness could bridge continents, cultures, and hearts.